Protected in Massachusetts, and you cannot break up those walls. Treasures and collectors appropriate all those rocks.
And he's an artist, and he hits with some of the uses.
That was quirky, but at least I don't think it harmed us. Oh, so that's not a good thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's a totally. Oh, there was a really funny one. Oh, the party. Did you see that? Did you see them at the festival? This is so funny. Clarkson.
Timothy Scott, Timothy Scott, British actors. Patricia Clarkson.
That was so fun. I mean, that was good because, something. Oh my God!
I know. Well, I told you. I was going.
What did somebody once call sitting in a theater? A collective dream.
My name is Mark Fishkin, and I'm the founder and executive director of the California Film Institute. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the inaugural documentary festival by CFI, Doclands. Thank you for coming.
I think one of the things that defines us as filmmakers is really just believing in people.
It's exciting to do work that you can see impact lives immediately.
We hope that the film generates a more compassionate debate about this issue.
What the film's really about is this collection of all these cultures that created who we all are. And music is one of the products of that.
Tough times for journalism, tough times also for truth. All the more reason why we're very proud of CFI for taking the stands, for convening this festival, and for bringing us all together for this purpose.
Documentarians have taken upon the mantle of investigative journalism, of incredible stories, and those subjects and those characters resonate with thousands, if not millions of people.
I've seen this film 6 times and I cry every time I see it.
Good evening. I feel like I don't have to introduce myself after that. But I definitely want to thank you all for coming tonight. And this is a very special night to be able to announce our program to our members. And I'd like to acknowledge all of our members that are here and those who aren't here for supporting the California Film Institute, not just Doclands, but all of our programs. I'd also like to give a tremendous thank you and a shout out to all those who have taken the time to give additional support, specifically for Doclands. This is a growing program, obviously a new program, and it's unbelievably how expensive even a 3-day or 4-day film festival could be. I forgot. I figured, oh, we could just go to petty cash, but that was not the case. But we are very proud of the work that we do, and I'd like to thank all of our staff, and particularly our programmers, for putting this incredible show together. So much was said in that trailer, I don't really want to be redundant, but it was really important for us to honor the genre of documentary filmmaking. Not only because there's more a need for it now than ever, with all the multitude of news stations, we keep hearing the same thing over and over in the sound bites. It's so important to get into depth in any particular subject that's dealing with social issues or politics, but also because of the nature of this documentary has become so creative and so compelling. That's why we have the 3 sections, because there's just too much to identify simply. One of the new things that we're doing this year is very important to us. As you know, we give spotlights and we have tributes at the Mill Valley Film Festival, but we created something called Docland Honors, and just to refresh your memory, it's presented to a filmmaker in recognition of exceptional storytelling within the documentary genre, an artist whose films resonate universally, emphasizing our common humanity no matter what the subject. And we are so delighted that Luis Zahoyos is our honoree for this year. You certainly know of his films if you don't know him personally, The Cove, Racing Extinction, and his new film, The Game Changers, which you probably have not seen as of yet. We can't think of a more suitable documentary filmmaker to be honored here at this second Doclands Film Festival. I'd like to also thank our additional sponsors. If you look at the program, there are literally over 100 corporations, individuals, in-kind donors that it takes to make this happen. So thank you to each and every one of you if you're here for supporting this second edition of Doclands. Our introduction would not be complete without introducing, you know her well, our membership coordinator, Doreen.
Hi everyone, so good to see you here tonight. First ever Doclands member preview. We're thrilled to have you here, or if you're streaming online, you're here to get the inside scoop directly from our programmers, and that's pretty exciting. I want to say a big thank you to you, our members. You're a big, vital part of this community, and we couldn't do all of this without you. Your support ensures that CFI programs, such as Doclands, will continue to grow, and important documentary films will continue to be seen by Bay Area audiences, so thank you. And also, being a member comes with great benefits. Some of the benefits you're going to get is that you get the lowest ticket price, and you get to buy the tickets first. So your member on sale is going to be on Friday at noon, and that's ahead of the general public by 1 day. So be on the lookout for an email from me letting you know when tickets are on sale. You can also get early bird ticket packages tonight up until 10 o'clock. So if you want opening or closing night tickets or a 6-pack of tickets, they are at an even lower membership price, and those are on sale until 10 tonight. And visit Doclands.com for all your festival information. Contact the box office or us at membership. And I will also be in the lobby after the program. If you have any questions or if you just want to say hello, come find me. And now here is Mark to start the program.
Thank you, Doreen. I want to acknowledge as well and welcome all those who are watching on YouTube. You won't be able to see Dorian in the lobby, but thank you for watching. This could not be done, this festival, without many, many people, as I mentioned, even as though it's half the size of the Mill Valley Film Festival. And certainly integral to the success of everything we do is our programming team. So now I'd like to welcome to the stage our Director of Programming, Jody Cooper, and Lorraine Hess, who is our Senior Programmer. Apparently. Do you have mics? You just have to shout really loud. We have a lot of films, so we do have notes. And a film festival would be nothing without an opening night. And we are really honored that our opening night film is Anote's Ark. This is a film that played at the Sundance Film Festival, and it is an amazing film, part of our section called The Great Outdoors. It takes place in the tropical islands, the beautiful tropical islands in the Pacific called Kiribati, and it is directed by Matthew Ritz, and luckily he is living in Marin temporarily. And so he will be here with the former president of the Kiribati, Anote himself, Anote Tong, who was president for 3 terms in this incredible, beautiful country. What I loved about this film was the way it intersected really 2 really important things. Anote really is the Al Gore of the Pacific, and he's traveled all around the world talking about climate change, because this is something that is incredibly dear and important to him. Literally, they have purchased land to move the entire population. But unfortunately, he is no longer president, and I think the new president does not have the same feelings about climate change as him. But this film also intersects with something really, really personal. There's a woman called Samari who has a family, and there literally only are 75 permits that will allow people to move to places like New Zealand in this case. And she is intent on moving to create a better life. So this film deals with so many different subjects that are current, but it is gorgeous to look at. It's again, a film, like I mentioned before, that resonates universally. We hope you will come out, because we will, as I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention it, we will not only have the director here, but Anote Tong, the former president of Kiribati, will be here on an opening night.
Shall we watch? Were we going to watch the 3 clips?
Yeah, let's watch the clips.
Kiribati is in the center of the world. So it's right there, bang in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So far away, so isolated. We thought it would be immune from the tribulations of this world. The issue of climate change remains the most pressing challenge for us in Kiribati.
Rising sea levels have already taken a village on one of your islands. Do you see the possibility of all the people from Kiribati one day having to leave?
For those of us on the front line, it really does not matter what is agreed to in Paris, because we will continue to go underwater.
If it is a foregone conclusion no matter what happens, what's the point of a deal now?
Well, what's the point when we need to survive? What is going to happen to us is going to be the fate of the rest. We will follow.
If you were to just take like a snapshot, one a day, and then just show them to me, there's no way I would go on this trip. No way. But holy shit! We're on the Arctic Circle!
One challenge that we didn't really think of was, is this river even flowing?
You know, just wondering if we're too late, if things are too cold. I mean, there's a line for sure, there's no doubt about it, but there's definitely consequences. It's not working right now. It is officially too cold to kayak, and that's not something I say lightly. Oh my God! Yeah, you alright? Did you hit at the bottom? I might have broke my nose or something. You alright? You okay? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Oh my God.
At times in history, it's almost impossible to avoid some sort of confrontation with change. Hurricanes, floods, droughts. Climate change is the most inclusive, all-enveloping issue of our time. It's everything.
Maybe in 50 or 100 years, we'll turn it around. What do we do in the meantime?
We're caterpillars right now. We're eating everything in sight.
Change is loss. Change is the gaining of something new.
Little taste of the first section, The Great Outdoors, with a little bit of impact thrown in there. Into Twin Galaxies, the first film that you saw there. It's a truly modern adventure taken on by this delightful trio, who will make you laugh and you will also cringe amidst their huge challenges of this super adventure that they discovered through, how else do we find adventure this year? Online, through Google Maps. And along with a very skilled cinematographer along for the ride, they take on this incredible challenge. But the moral of the story I came away with is women are brave and tougher than nails. So I highly recommend.
You say nails or nails?
Well, in this case, probably
Either
both.
way, it's fine.
Yeah. And the third film in the clips there was called Metamorphosis. And I never would have thought that a climate change film could be so mesmerizingly beautiful. Believe it or not, the stunning visuals combined with the most compelling sound and music mix gave me a true feeling of hope. Based here in Northern California and around the world, we come to learn that we can save ourselves, and it is possible. Velcro Ripper and Nova Ami, the two directors of the film, Canadian film, will be here, and they will also be conducting a unique workshop called Metamorphosis Journey. It's kind of an eco-hero workshop that was inspired by their film. Their 6-year-old production assistant Phoenix Ripper will be with us as well, but it is an amazing film.
How many filmmakers are coming this year?
There'll be about, well, close to 60. Yeah. So we're really excited to have them all coming.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Oh, yes, excellent. So can we have our next slide, which is Albatross? Excellent. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this film may well change your life. It'll certainly change some of your behaviors, I can guarantee that. It's a first-time documentary by a photographic artist called Chris Jordan. It took him 8 years to make this film. And it's set on a remote atoll in the middle of the North Pacific called Midway Island, that also happens to be the largest colony of albatross in the world. The reason I love this film so much is that because it's such a remote location, these birds are not afraid of humans or the camera. So the footage, it's unprecedented how close and intimate these shots are with these sometimes comical-looking birds. But also it's one of these films that when you're looking for a great film, it sort of checks all the boxes. It's got great cinematography, editing, music, sound effects, great structure to it. It has emotional appeal and great impact. And I think finally the filmmaker says something at the end of the film that hit me. He says, I didn't know I could care about an albatross. And I think if you watch this film, you're going to understand exactly what he means.
It's interesting how many of the filmmakers started out as photographers that we have. I mentioned Matthew Ritz. He was a photographer as well, still is, of course.
Yes. Great. Well, the next one is Dugout. So if you are somebody who likes eco-adventure, or even if you're just an armchair traveller, this is a must-see for you. And the story follows two very kind of cheeky and optimistic young British guys who embark on a 2-month adventure in the Ecuadorian rainforest. And their mission is to build a traditional dugout canoe and then take it downriver, down the Amazon River. I guess the stars of this story are both the Amazon River itself, which is beautifully captured on film, and the animals, the wildlife, the lush scenery, and so on. But also the local tribes people, the Warani tribe, who help them to build the boat and train them in the ways of the forest and teach them survival skills. But I think it's a very refreshing and fun and entertaining film. Even when these guys go through a great deal of tribulations, they always find time to laugh at themselves. So this is a very enjoyable film that I hope you get time to see. The next one is called A River's Last Chance. And this film is a must-see if you're somebody who's passionate about our local environment and especially our local waterways. It's a story about salmon, timber, weed, and wine along California's mighty Eel River. It's a cautionary tale too, because apparently in 2014 the river went dry for the very first time in its history. There's some amazing, fascinating historical archival footage, stills and newspaper clippings and that kind of thing that tell this story of this river that has endured cycles of both damage and repair in its history. But most of all, you know what I love about this film is it is actually uplifting, believe it or not. Just like the salmon that are endangered but keep bouncing back somehow. The people involved in trying to save this river, the scientists, the activists, the people that are passionate about doing that, make me think that somehow, some way, this is a story of hope and we're going to make this river live again. So there you go.
And we move now to the Valley of the Wolves, which I can't tell you how many times watching these films this year that I actually wept at the beauty of them, like truthfully, and I still get shivers when I think about so many of them. There is just unbelievable beauty, and the Valley of the Wolves is no exception. First, I fell in love with the sweeping beauty of the wilderness through this incredible cinematography that the filmmaker did, and there's really a beautiful music score that goes along with it, so it just is a stunning film. But then I fell in love with the filmmaker, who is the character in the film, and he takes us on this journey with him. He's on a solo trip, and he makes you laugh out loud because of, you know, he's got to entertain himself while he's out there, and this is shot over a 3-year period, and this remote area is quite close to his home. But you see him go out in the winter and in the summer and back and forth, but he spends so much time alone. And it's all while he's searching for a pack of wolves that he truly believes with all his heart are there. And it's just one of those films that it just sweeps you away totally with it.
Well, I think we're going to take a look at a few more trailers. We'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
The offices in which we're sitting have been bombed. Worry about, does your wife worry
Well,
about?
I'm sure she does. I really do expect that I will be killed by the regime or its agents.
I was told that I was going to meet O.R. Tambo.
We observed his brisk walk, the manner in which his eyes moved, and all of us were just awestruck.
He makes me feel that whatever it is that I'm going to be saying to him, it is important.
What we want in South Africa is that our humanity should be acknowledged.
We're fighting on the home front, but the international front is also very, very important. This is precisely the reason why Oliver Tambo was sent out.
OR had to keep the movement alive, to keep it strong, to keep it united.
There were times when he was without food, without the kind of basic needs people had, but you could never see it on him.
Did you ever, when you first left the country, imagine that it would go on this long?
You know, when I left South Africa in 1960, I expected to be back in 5 years.
He was married to the struggle, and he had a very, very deep sense of the role that he had to play. And we were tremendously proud of what he was doing.
I would sometimes say to him as he was leaving, "Give him hell, Dad," you know. And one time he came back into the house and he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You know, kill him. kill the bastards. You know? I said, no, that's not what we're about. We're not fighting them as people. We're fighting the system of apartheid.
Forging one of the biggest global movements. I think it's one of the major achievements that anyone globally had ever made.
All over the world were these anti-apartheid movements. So many people for the same cause. Millions and millions it must have been.
Do you ever have any time for yourself?
Not really.
Leaders of Oliver Tambo's caliber helped raise the movement to their level.
Oliver Tambo was in a class of his own. Didn't spare himself one iota.
He's killing himself by his overwork.
A diplomat, debater, strategist, swimmer, a musician, but ultimately just such a good human being.
Oliver Tambo! Oliver Tambo!
Well, thank you very much. You have turned me into a little film star.
They have a column like Ask the Sex Expert.
The page number just bounced into my head. I think it's somewhere between 32 or 34.
I'm a 35-year-old man. I'm a chain smoker and don't get a good erection. My wife prefers to insert a ripe banana in her vagina instead of my penis. She says I cannot satisfy her. I'm depressed. She does not like your bad breath. Stop smoking. The nicotine may have also affected your erection. Be more caring and learning the art of foreplay. She may then prefer you to the banana every time.
There is a column, it comes every day. It's a column on sexual health. Have you ever read that column? Called Ask This Expert?
It's a very interesting column you were saying. The column next to that, you know, health ka.
Sex Expert, page 34, right? Yeah, everyone knows about it.
I know, I have not read it. I know from some people. Okay. What do you know about it? I don't know.
All human beings are sexual. Going through life is a wonderful journey, full of excitement and surprises. Learning about sexuality begins from a time a child is born and continues until the end of life.
Do you find your popularity surprising?
Yeah, definitely. We did this for 40 years and nobody ever bothered. And suddenly in the 41st year, somebody is bothering.
I know what these pictures are going to look like. They're going to look like who I am, and it's going to look like I'm one of those obsessive people or something. And there is the Britain Room. A few days after we were married, I found 3 truckloads of material that belonged to Frank and Indiana Britton. It was probably good it was a few days after our wedding.
How many of these films are unique copies?
Have you thought about bringing an expert in?
You know, until this year, nobody was ever excited about, you know, what is the significance of these.
What's wonderful, just wonderful, gives me goosebumps about this collection. We're talking about a small town in eastern Iowa, and we have a pâté catalog from Paris.
The Brittons traveled all the way from Texas to Minnesota. Most of that part of the country saw their first projected images at a Britton show.
It is absolutely stunning. It is Méliès, and that's exactly the film. We have a new one.
And we'll go to those towns where they performed, and we'll put on a show just like was there 120 years ago. I don't think there's anything we could do that would be as big of a leap as what it was for somebody to come in from the field and go and watch a movie. I don't think we can wow people like that anymore. I'd sure like to give it a try.
Well, this section is called Wonderlands, and you know, it's really hard to categorize a film even by these broad sections, and many of them could have been in other sections, and they really should be in both or all of them, and it's just a matter of choice. And the first film I'm going to talk about is Have You Heard from Johannesburg, Oliver Tambo. You saw it in the first clip. And it's directed by Connie Field. She was nominated for an Oscar for co-directing Freedom on My Mind. And she also directed a seminal film called The Life of Rosie the Riveter. So you may recall her. I love this film, and I can understand why it's in Wonderlands, because he is wonderful. And it's a wonder that there was somebody like him to deal with the anti-apartheid movement. We certainly hear about Nelson Mandela, and we hear about Winnie Mandela, but you don't hear as much about Oliver, and he was integral to the success, to the point that without him being a consummate politician and a revolutionary at the same time, we don't really even know if they would have been successful in this movement. So it was amazing for me to have lived through this in the United States, where it was so incredible to watch, and really had not known the significance of his role. He's a man of a religious man of great character, but also was put in a position where he had to make some very, very difficult life and death choices. I would just encourage you to see it.
And Connie's a Bay Area filmmaker.
She is, and she will be here for that screening. And it's a different date than it's in the program, correct?
Yeah, take note. She is now scheduled, and this, when you go to the ticket website, everything will be correct there. But she's screening this film Sunday night at 7:15 at the Sequoia.
And now for something completely different, as they say. This film's called Ask the Sexpert, and as you saw from this great trailer there, it's actually it's a film with a lot of very serious topics in it, but there are some truly laugh out loud moments. As you saw, it's an unlikely story of a 91-year-old former gynecologist called Dr. Mahinda Watsa, who now writes this popular newspaper column in India about sex. It is actually a very important topic because about a third of Indian states have a ban on any kind of comprehensive sex education in schools. So he's actually providing a very important service to the people who are unbelievably ignorant about some very basic things. What I love about the film is I see him as an activist. He's taken it upon himself to give people this very important sex education. And of course, it's just fun. It's hilarious in moments. Has great production values, great pacing. It moves along at a really good clip. Very entertaining film, and mostly it's just about this wonderful character who I fell in love with, and I have no doubt that you will too.
And the third clip there was Saving Brinton, and as you saw on the trailer, it's a cinephile's delight, and it really is, because this unassuming, sort of self-appointed historian of this small Iowa town found this incredible treasure trove of film and film archives in the basement of a farmhouse. And luckily for all of us, he knew that this was of value, but it sure took some convincing of other people. And he actually spent 32 years of his life, as he mentioned, like pretty much a few days after he got married, he found the trove. So luckily he didn't find her. He may never have gotten married. But both Mike Saz, the historian, and the filmmaker John Richard will be here. And Mike is bringing with him a taste of some of those original films that he will screen during the Q&A as well. Just a short, I think, 7 minutes worth of those films. But he also, through all of this, spent time helping to raise money to refurbish the original Brinton Theatre, which was the first movie house in the heartland of America. And he has worked so hard through all of these years, and he has finally gaining the respect of a lot of people working in film, as you saw in the clip. You know, he ended up traveling to Paris and I forget where else, but because of the Pathé footage. But he is quite a character, so it'll be lots of fun.
When is he going to learn how to focus? Who's up?
I am. Becoming Who I Was. Now, when filmmakers spend 8 years with a boy who is named a reincarnation of a spiritual master and his guardian, the results kind of had me wondering if it was a scripted film, because as time went on, they both got so comfortable with having the camera around that they just went on their daily lives just as they would. And of course, they were interesting lives because of all they were going through this time. But what it boils down to really is a relationship of love and devotion between the two. And the two of them together, yes, there are hardships because they are trying to make their way to Tibet, so that he can take his place with the sect that he belongs. But through this all, they have a lot of fun because he's a boy, and he likes to do things that boys love to do, and he continues to do them, and he pulls his guardian in to play with him a lot, and it's a beautiful film with the cinematography and the music again. Just gave me shivers throughout because it's just such a gorgeous film to watch and so fun and truly a delight. It was actually one of the top 20 audience favorites at Hot Docs last year. So it's a real audience pleaser. Becoming Who I Was. The King is the next film I want to talk about. In this film, they're all so different. And in Wonderlands, it's like, okay, what we look for a lot of, like Mark mentioned, are things that are upbeat and uplifting, no matter what the topic really is. Director Eugene Jarecki uses musicians, beautifully produced music, and political pundits, and news footage to make a point, while taking a cinematic road trip across the country in Elvis Presley's 1963 Rolls-Royce. That's where all the music takes place, that's where the interviews take place, and he also uses a bit of news footage as well. But basically, he compares Elvis's burnout to the decline of the American Empire. And it makes for an absolutely unique and, I think, a genius viewpoint of today's politics. I can tell you that I never enjoyed the bad news so much as watching it through the eyes of Eugene Jarecki and his characters. But there really is an upbeat feeling of hope for the future at the end of it. And Eugene Jarecki will be here as well to answer your questions, which I'm sure there will be lots.
Great, thank you. So the next film is called Finding Hygge. And many of you are probably wondering what the hell is Hygge and how on earth do you pronounce it anyway. But Denmark happens to be one of those countries that's always ranks very highly on the, is it called the World Happiness Index or something like that? Every year it's they're one of the happiest group of people in the world. And they kind of have their own word to describe it, called hygge. around the world, it's come to be kind of a trendy term these days to describe sort of a lifestyle and cozy furnishings and furniture and fuzzy pillows and candles and that kind of thing. But actually for the Danish, it has a lot of different meanings and sometimes a lot deeper meanings. It's a light and uplifting film. It's beautifully shot. A full cast of very interesting Danish characters who all describe to us what hygge means to them personally. It's full of humour and deeply philosophical in nature, which I really love. But I guarantee that by the time you finish watching this film, you are definitely going to want a little bit more of the hygge in your own lives. So I hope you get a chance to see this one. So the next one is called Olompali, a hippie odyssey. And so this one's a really terrific local story that I personally was not familiar with, but some of you may well be. It's about a wealthy businessman called Don McCoy, that guy there. He drops out and starts a hippie commune in the summer of love at Olompali, which I think is just up the road from here.
Just up 101.
Just up 101, during the summer of love. So he buys this big mansion there, and which becomes known as the White House of Hippiedom. And he and his chosen family start this experimental, utopian living experiment over there in Olompali. It really is a terrific story, and it's kind of a microcosm, really, of what happened during the summer of love in many ways. It has its sort of blissful highs and then its really tragic lows. It's a very well-documented story using some amazing archival footage and stills and interviews with people that were actually there at the time. And it really is a real-life drama that has some very emotional, a great deal of emotional impact. So I hope you have a chance to catch this one too.
How many of you recall Olompali? And how many of you were there? Well, you probably couldn't remember anyways.
The other thing is that the screening will be their world premiere.
The next film we're going to talk about is directed by Don Hardy and Dana Nachman, and they're local filmmakers, very prolific, highly regarded, and they've done films like Witch Hunt and Child Molestation and films on terrorism. Well, Pick of the Litter is nothing like that. Pick of the Litter is about the guide dogs for the blind, and it really is a celebration, and I know you're going to think I'm going to say canines, but humanity and canines. And it's not only just the documentation of this national, fantastic not-for-profit that is right here in San Rafael, but it tells these stories simultaneously, very important stories of the 5 Labrador retrievers that were bred to be working dogs, and to the handlers who donate their time, can spend nearly 2 years with these dogs and then have to give them up, as well as the people who receive the dogs and the people who are involved in this program called Guide Dogs for the Blind. It's just a delightful film. There will be some very special guests here for that show on the stage, and they all have 4 legs and a tail.
Most of them, anyway.
Yeah, so there'll be a few people who they'll bring along a few people with them. So it's just it's a really emotional film. You don't have to be a dog lover to enjoy this film. It doesn't hurt. But I hope you get to see it. Jody?
And Shiners is the next film that I'd like to talk about. I've always liked my shoes and boots to be pretty shiny, but Stacey Tannenbaum's beautifully produced film takes the shine to a whole new level. She not only shows us the art and pride behind the shine through shiners around the world, but we also get to learn their philosophies on life, which they have such great things to say about how they've chosen to live. I even got the word from the filmmaker about one of the shiners in the film, so when I went to New York, I actually tried to get my shoes shined because she talked really highly of him. Unfortunately, he had taken a few days off. But after seeing the film, I want to go to Japan, because in Japan, they take shining to an art form. It's like a tea ceremony, really. Stacy will be here with local shiner for the film to help spread the gospel.
The next film is called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's directed by Morgan Neville, who you may recall did 20 Feet from Stardom. So this is a pretty high-profile, documentary, well-received in Sundance, and it's about Fred Rogers. And I found this so fascinating, particularly because I never liked Mr. Rogers. Even when my daughter would put it on, I'd say, "Don't you want to watch Sesame Street?" But it totally turned me around. I mean, who would have thought that he was a radical? And it was the winner of the People's Choice Award at, I think recently, the Boulder Festival. But it deals with subjects such as death, divorce, racism, assassination, sexuality. And he's not talking to adults, he's talking to kids. And I just didn't recall any of that. And it's really a beautiful film. I think you're going to come away with it if you didn't know much about Fred Rogers, what a strong character he had, and it's just a really great film. He gives a quote, Fred Rogers. He says, "The greatest thing that we can do is help somebody know that they're loved and capable of loving." I do remember him like that, and I think you will too.
You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll do everything. A few more clips.
We will be back.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Monarch. Monarch Butterflies is the one that migrates to Mexico.
Si no protegemos el bosque, no reforestamos, no hacemos trabajo, nuestra juventud el día de mañana va a tener un desierto.
Se oía pues en los reportajes que hacían de la monarca que estaba hasta con peligro de extinción.
Y que hay muertos y hay mortandad.
En el bosque hay mucha madera que se puede aprovechar. Se puede clarear algo del bosque y la gente dijo no. Hagamos algo. A ver, señores, miren.
Tenemos varios años en esto de la conservación del bosque.
Hay que estar al cuidado de las 24 horas, permanente los 365 días del año. No es fácil.
Me hace falta mi esposo, que no está aquí. Traía un arma allí, pero él no hizo nada malo, nomás por estar cuidando.
Todo aquel comunero que quiera cuidar su bosque, lo puede cuidar. La decisión está en sus manos.
Tuvimos que enfrentarnos con gente que iba decidida a desaparecernos. Todavía estamos aquí. Y el bosque deja de existir, el hombre le sigue también.
أنا ناجية من الإبادة الإيزيدية ولاجئة الآن.
Nadia Murad is campaigning to try to get the world to notice and do something.
Yet she tells the story again and again of how she became an ISIS sex slave.
Although she's the strongest person I've ever seen, I don't know how much more strength she has.
What do you hope to give to the Yazidi people?
I would like to see justice to be done for Yazidis.
I now give the floor to Miss Nadia Murad Basi Taha.
People always ask, how do you choose the subjects you write about? It doesn't work like that. I've been coming regularly to the Middle East. I recognize it. It answers to something in me. Over 4/5 of the Israeli state are in favor of building a wall along its borders. This $4 billion wall will be over 4 times as long as the Berlin Wall and twice as high.
They do it because they can. We have the right to render your life meaningless.
It works. 80% of terrorist attacks against Israel have stopped.
We are trapped in this paradox. The wall is not around us. It's around them.
History has not followed the course we might have wished.
There are people here who have not seen a body of water for 15 years. This wall is being built to keep people out. We found a way in.
I know as soon as I look, I'm never going to forget. How do you react to that?
You saw the trailer for this film, The Guardians. If you're like me, you're probably deeply disturbed by the lack of monarch butterflies that we can see around these days. And I've just noticed that there are hardly any around in my garden anymore. And if that's something you're interested in, this film is a must-see. Did you know, for example, that in the last 20 years, the monarch butterfly populations have diminished from about 1 billion to something like 33 million. And one of the reasons for this is because of their wintering habitat, which is in Mexico, that you saw in the trailer there, is being destroyed by logging. You know, as they travel down from Canada to Mexico on a 3,000-mile-long migration every year. As you can see, the film is set in Mexico in what's called the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve. But actually, you know, what was so interesting to me about this film was how the filmmakers weave together the stories of the people and the butterfly in such an artful, beautiful way. And you really do come to understand on both an intellectual and an emotional level just how interconnected we all are, animals and people. It's really a spectacular film, and I hope you do get a chance to see this one. Sorry, you're next.
The second trailer was On Her Shoulders, and I can't even watch the trailer without crying. Very early on, it's easy to see why director Alexandria Bombach won the Documentary Best Director Award at Sundance this year, because she chose a different way to tell the story and rather tell the story outright about Nadia Murad and what she's lived through. She tells it through such delicately lit and intimate interviews, and we get to watch the toll that it takes on Nadia telling her story over and over and over again. And she's quite a reluctant activist. She wanted to run a beauty parlor, but she's had this calling to do this. And she works tirelessly telling this story over and over to bring it to the attention of the world. And I'm delighted that Alexandra is going to be here because I really want to find out how I can help. It's just a story that is heartbreaking, but it's told in such a unique and gentle way.
Before you start, Lorraine, I just want to say something, that this is, of course, the section is the art of impact. And it's amazing because we're dealing with these firsthand hearing these stories, whether they be someone who's a victim of a terrorist or sex trade or destroying the environment we live in. And they're all doing the heavy lifting here. And then comes the filmmakers who come along, they do their part to document this. And then we come along and we show this and make a place for it for people to see. And then your part as well is so important of coming to see these films. Not all of them will be dealing with the art of impact. We want you to laugh as well. But it's so important that you see these and that you spread these stories as well. That's why we have an initiative called Active Cinema that started at the Mill Valley Film Festival. And I just felt that that was relevant to say about this particular section.
Great, thank you. The next film is called The Wall. It's definitely one of the most original and innovative films in the Doclands selection this year. As you saw from the trailer, the film takes a very unique look at the wall between Israel and Palestine. And it combines the thoughts and reflections and interviews with and by the British playwright Sir David Hare. But his thoughts are brilliantly illustrated with the animation of the director called Cam Christensen, who I think is coming all the way from Canada, right, in person. He's going to be with us for the Q&A. What's so interesting about this film is that it makes very complex issues slightly easier to grasp somehow. I mean, we've heard these stories over and over, but somehow because of the animation, it helps to explain what's going on in a very fresh and unusual way. And of course, it just feels so timely and relevant, this film, as we speak about building a wall between America and our neighbors. So this is definitely one to catch if you have time.
We have a very special film for closing night, and it's 16 Bars. It's the world premiere of Sam Bathrick's transformative film that takes us behind the bars of Richmond, Virginia's jail, and into a very special program. Speech Thomas, who is with the hip-hop group of Arrested Development, that's him there, goes into the jail and helps some truly gifted men write and produce songs of their own. And because this jail has a very tiny, what's it called? Recording studio, that's it. So that's why they have taken this program on there. But Speech and the woman who runs this program are certainly two of the most caring individuals I've ever seen. And through the beautifully produced music that the men write, we learn the stories behind them and how the system is failing and just not working for these people, for the inmates. Director Sam Bathrick, producer Adam Barton, and Speech, as well as one of the former inmates and one of the guys who's in the film, one of the inmates, former inmates, Teddy Kane, and his mom, Loretta, will be here with us. And we're going to have a special performance after the screening of Speech and Teddy doing one of the songs that Speech wrote. And it's, my heart just flutters thinking of it, because these people are absolutely amazing. So I feel very lucky to have this for closing night.
And it will be followed by a party.
Yes, there will be a party. We've also got it's one film program with 2 political cartoon programs. The first one is Mr. Fish, cartooning from the deep end. And when I saw this, I thought, mark my words, we are going to be paying a lot of money for this guy's cartoons one day, even though right now he is struggling as he tries to maintain his integrity with his work in a world where political correctness is sometimes more important than anything. And I do hope he brings some of his work with him, but he's an amazing character. So he and the director, Pablo Bryant, will be here. And this one won the Best Documentary Feature Award at Slamdance this year. So it's very entertaining. The second half of the program is one called Drawn Together, which is this one that Keith Knight, who some of you may be very familiar with, excuse me, is featured in it. But it's a group of political cartoonists are breaking new ground, and it also features a 6th superhero, Vishavik Singh and Eileen Kaur Alden, along with Keith Knight. Most of what I learned about the Bay Area politics when I first came here, I learned from Keith Knight. So I am looking forward to meeting him, as well as the director, Harleen Singh, the night of that screening, the afternoon, actually.
I think you have one more.
No, Aaron McQueen.
Okay. Oh, this is me, McQueen. Sorry about that. McQueen is the story of Alexander McQueen, the incredible fashion designer. It documents his life from the very beginning. A lot of footage with his family to his suicide at the age of 40. He was an icon in the industry, shock value, but in terms of his shows. But I think his shows are more what they call fashion theater. And there's some beautiful documentation of his shows that are very political at times, very outrageous, and exquisitely dark and beautiful. I would call this film, and I would say if you like the film Amy, you would like this film. And it seems that would be impossible. One's about fashion, one's about music. But this film is not very similar to some of the other great fashion films that you've seen on Vivienne Westwood or others. It really is more like Amy. And I would recommend it highly. It has parts of it that are a little tough, but I don't think it's anything that you can't handle.
And I just wanted to add to that, too, is despite the theatricals he does with fashion, he seems to be was one of the most down-to-earth fashion icons I've ever seen on the screen.
Absolutely, and he was a genius, and he was a genius as a tailor. He could cut fabric without even, just by looking at it on a model. It was amazing what he would do. People would be shocked because he'd just take a scissor and start cutting these amazing gowns. It's a fascinating portrait, and it's a very new film, and we feel very fortunate to have it. Okay, Lorraine, you're up.
Okay, so the next one is called Minding the Gap. And actually I think this has to be one of my favorite films this year. It won a special jury award for breakthrough filmmaking at Sundance this year. And it's a first film by a Chinese-American documentary filmmaker called Bing Liu, who actually started his career in filmmaking, making DIY skateboarding movies. It's set in Rockport, Illinois, and Bing follows 3 friends, he being one of them, in a sort of a coming-of-age movie, but with a difference. It's through the skateboarding, it offers them both an escape, but also a way for them to connect with each other. It has a very unique style to it. Sometimes Bing himself is on camera, sometimes he's not. Sometimes his friends choose to speak directly to him, and sometimes they don't want to. But the style allows for some very intimate confessions during the course of the film that you'll have to see to find out what they are. But ultimately what I love about this film is it's so warm and authentic and truthful. And I just, again, I fell in love with these three boys, and I really encourage you to try and catch this one too. I hope you have a lot of time, because there's a lot of films that you have to catch. Me up again, Rescue List, The Rescue List. Yeah, this one is a haunting film. It's an unforgettable film, actually, and it will stay with you for a long time. It was actually pitched last year at Doc Pitch, for any of you who might have been present at that. And it takes place on the world's largest man-made lake in Ghana called Lake Volta. But it's also the scene of a horrendous human rights disaster. Children from all around the area are captured as slaves to work in the fishing industry on this big lake. The hero of this story is a character called Kwame, and he goes out every day to try and rescue these children from the fishing boats in sometimes very dangerous circumstances. And then he takes them to a safe house where they're given schooling and therapy, and maybe often they try to reintegrate these kids back to their families. The craft of this film is spectacular. The cinematography of the lake with the sunsets and sunrises, the fishing scenes, the dramatic rescues and the faces of these kids it's really unforgettable. So it's an exquisite film, and I highly recommend it.
The next film we're going to talk about is Sufra, and it takes place in Lebanon. So imagine if you lived in a camp for refugees. This is primarily Palestinian, Syrian refugees, and you really have no contact with the rest of the country, and you have no opportunity. And this is the story of a number of women led by a woman called Mariam. She could be your daughter if you were from a Jewish family. She could be your sister. She could be anyone. And that's what's so strong about this film. It's not only relevant and entertaining, it's universal in its appeal. And the fact that it could do that with such a difference from anything that we could experience is amazing. These women start a catering company, first very, very teeny, and their goal is to have a food truck. And it has its ups and downs, but I'm sure you enjoy this incredible film. The last film we're going to talk about also played at Sundance. It's called Three Identical Strangers. Great title. And it's the story of three triplets who don't know that they're part of triplets. And that alone would be an amazing story. And I'm not going to give any spoilers here, but it turns into something quite different. And that's why it's also in this category, the art of impact. I went to the first screening at Sundance. I think literally there must have been 600 to 800 people. Every seat was filled with this film. It was just amazing. The director is a very experienced director, and he tells the story of Bobby, David, and Eddie, who all meet each other when they're in their late teens, early 20s. And they turn into media sensations, and then, as I said, it turns into something quite different.
That one won the U.S. Documentary Special Jury Award for Storytelling. It's quite a ride. It plays like a mystery, like a good mystery.
Absolutely. So, I think we covered a lot. We don't have a lot of time. I hope you enjoyed it, but I think we have time for just a few questions. Depends how you identify a few. So, if anyone has any, yes, right over there, the lovely woman in the white sweater.
How can you help us see the films that we missed? Because we obviously can't see every film.
Why not?
Your timing, I think.
Well, we initiated this festival because we felt there were so many great documentaries that we just couldn't play alone at the Mill Valley Film Festival or at this beautiful facility, the Smith Rafel Film Center, even though we have 3 screens here. But certainly some of these films will be back. I can't tell you exactly all of them, but there will be some. I would check out the new schedule for the Smith Rafel Film Center. Maybe there will be a couple listed there. But we do our best, so maybe we'll have to do it twice a year. I don't know.
And most of these terrific films will at some point get onto Netflix or Amazon.
They will. Yes, right here.
So you mentioned a package of 6 films. Do we go to the website and get that, or is there an email that we have about that?
Doreen, is something you can address? It's about the ticket packages of 6 films.
Where does she get them?
Ooh, you can get them at the website tonight till 10.
Doclands.com.
6-pack, so you can choose any regularly priced films with the 6-pack. Those are at a lower price than they will be when members' ticket sales are happening on Friday.
Doclands.com.
Do we have something over there? I just realized there were mic runners. I thought you were just hanging out. Anyone else? Another question?
Brinton, who's Brinton, she asked. Brinton was an entrepreneur who lived in a small town in Iowa, who built the first movie house in the heartland of America, and who brought these films in to screen at that theater, and was the instigator of some of these, bringing these historic films to the U.S.
Are they from France?
Some of them, are they from France, she asked. Some of them are, but they're not all from France. But yeah, they had a lot of the Pathé catalog films in that treasure trove that he found in the farmhouse basement. It's really cool.
Other questions?
I have one. How many documentaries, thank you, how many documentaries were submitted overall, and from that submission amount, how many were allowed into the festival?
I know Doc Pitch alone, there was over 100 submissions. I don't know about for the festival. A lot of it was invitational.
Well, we had, and I should have written these numbers down, but we had over 400 films submitted to the festival, and we had to winnow them down to, I think we've got 29 films in total.
And do you happen to know roughly how many were international?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. I can let you know later. I'd have to look it up.
We have time just for a couple more questions, if there's any people out there still have them.
Got one here.
If that's not the case, we will give you opportunity to speak to our terrific membership department if you have any questions about getting ticketing. So I want to thank all of you who came out to the Rafel, all of you at home that are watching this, and please come out to Doclands on May 3rd through 6th. Thank you so much.